Welcome to Ancient Relics Keeper, where buried mysteries, unsolved phenomena, and the darkest corners of history slowly unravel through chilling tales and forgotten truths waiting to be uncovered. The Roman Empire, at its peak from the 1st century BCE to the 2nd century CE, was a powerful civilization that shaped the world. From a small city on the Tiber River, Rome grew to rule lands from Britain to the Middle East. Its achievements in architecture, law, military, and culture made it the center of the world and left a lasting legacy. The Roman Empire, during its golden age from the 1st century BCE to the 2nd century CE, was a civilization that built wonders to last a lifetime and beyond. Among its greatest achievements were its architectural masterpieces, buildings that stood as symbols of power, innovation, and the Roman spirit. These famous structures, like the Colosseum, the Pantheon, and the Roman Forum, were not just places for gatherings or worship. They were bold statements of what humans could achieve when ambition met ingenuity. The Romans mastered materials like concrete, perfected designs like arches and domes, and created spaces that awed their citizens and continue to captivate us today. This exploration dives into the famous buildings of Rome, revealing how they were built, why they mattered, and what they tell us about a civilization that shaped the world. The Colosseum, often called the Flavian Amphitheater, is perhaps the most iconic of all Roman buildings. Completed in 80 CE under Emperor Titus, it was a gift to the Roman people, a place where the empire's might and entertainment merged. Located in the heart of Rome, this massive oval structure could hold up to 50,000 spectators, a number that speaks to its scale and the Romans' love for grand public events. The Colosseum was designed for gladiator battles, animal hunts, and even mock naval fights, with a complex system of underground tunnels and trapdoors to bring fighters and beasts into the arena. Its outer walls, made of travertine stone, rose over 150 feet high, with 4 levels of arches and columns in the Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian styles. This mix of architectural orders was not just decorative. It showed Rome's ability to blend beauty with function. The Colosseum's design relied heavily on concrete, a Roman invention that allowed for stronger, more flexible construction than traditional stone. By pouring concrete over wooden molds, builders created the curved walls and vaulted ceilings that made the Colosseum both durable and spacious. The arena's efficiency was remarkable. It had 80 entrances to manage crowds, and a retractable awning, called the Velarium, shielded spectators from the sun. For Romans, the Colosseum was more than a venue. It was a stage for imperial power, where emperors like Vespasian and Titus won the loyalty of their people through free spectacles. Even today, despite centuries of earthquakes and looting, the Colosseum stands as a testament to Roman engineering and a reminder of the empire's vibrant, sometimes brutal, culture. Another masterpiece, the Pantheon, shows a different side of Roman architecture, one of reverence and innovation. Built under Emperor Hadrian around 126 CE, the Pantheon was a temple dedicated to all Roman gods, its name meaning all gods in Greek. Unlike the Colosseum's open, crowd-filled energy, the Pantheon offered a quiet, sacred space that connected worshippers to the divine. Its most striking feature is its massive dome, the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world even today, measuring 142 feet in diameter. The dome's perfect proportions create a sense of harmony, with its height equal to its width, forming a sphere inside the building. At the dome's center is the oculus, a circular opening 27 feet wide that lets in sunlight and rain, symbolizing a link between Earth and the heavens. The Pantheon's interior is breathtaking. Its walls are lined with marble, and its floor is a patterned mosaic that draws the eye upward to the coffered dome, which reduces weight while adding beauty. The building's front features a portico with 16 Corinthian columns, each carved from a single piece of granite, shipped from Egypt. This entrance, with its triangular pediment, echoes Greek temples, showing how Rome blended its own innovations with classical influences. The Pantheon's concrete dome was a marvel, made lighter by using pumice in the mix and thinning the structure toward the top. This engineering feat allowed the dome to stand for nearly 2,000 years with minimal repairs. For Romans, the Pantheon was a place of spiritual unity, where the empire's diverse gods were honored together. Its survival, later as a Christian church, proves its timeless design and the Romans' architectural genius. The Roman Forum, though not a single building, was the beating heart of Rome and deserves mention among its famous structures. Located in a valley between the Palatine and Capitoline hills, the Forum was the center of public life, where Romans gathered for politics, commerce, and religion. Over centuries, it grew into a sprawling complex of temples, basilicas, and arches, each reflecting the empire's evolving power. The Temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, perched on the Capitoline Hill, was the most sacred, dedicated to the god who protected Rome. Its massive podium and towering columns made it a symbol of divine favor. Nearby, the Basilica of Maxentius, started in the 4th century but rooted in earlier designs, was a vast hall for legal and commercial activities, with its high vaults and intricate mosaics showcasing Roman wealth. The Forum also included the Curia, where the Senate met, its simple brick exterior hiding a richly decorated interior. Triumphal arches, like the Arch of Titus, celebrated military victories with detailed reliefs of conquests. The Forum's layout was practical yet grand, with open plazas for speeches and markets, surrounded by colonnades that offered shade. Romans built the Forum with durability in mind, using concrete, brick, and marble, often imported from across the empire. The Forum's significance went beyond its buildings. It was where laws were debated, emperors were crowned, and the empire's identity was forged. For citizens, walking through the Forum was a reminder of Rome's greatness, a place where history was made daily. Though much of it lies in ruins, the Forum still evokes the energy of a city that ruled the world. These famous buildings, the Colosseum, the Pantheon, and the Roman Forum, share common threads that define Roman architecture. First, they were built to serve the people, whether through entertainment, worship, or civic duty. The Colosseum brought Romans together for shared spectacles, strengthening their loyalty to the emperor. The Pantheon offered a space for spiritual reflection, uniting the empire's diverse beliefs. The Forum was the stage for public life, where every citizen, from senators to merchants, played a role. Second, these buildings showcased Rome's engineering prowess. The use of concrete allowed for larger, more complex structures than ever before, while arches and vaults distributed weight efficiently, creating spaces that were both strong and open. The Romans also mastered logistics, transporting materials like Egyptian granite or Carrara marble across vast distances. Third, these structures were designed with beauty in mind. The Colosseum's orderly arches, the Pantheon's harmonious dome, and the Forum's ornate temples blended function with artistry, reflecting Rome's pride in its achievements. These buildings were not just practical. They were propaganda, proclaiming the empire's wealth, power, and divine favor to all who saw them. The famous buildings of Rome also reveal the empire's ability to adapt and innovate. The Colosseum's design drew on earlier amphitheaters but scaled them up with new materials and crowd control systems. The Pantheon's dome pushed the limits of what concrete could do, inspiring architects for centuries, from Renaissance domes to modern stadiums. The Forum evolved over time, with each emperor adding new structures to leave their mark. These buildings were not static. They grew with the empire, reflecting its changing needs and ambitions. They also show Rome's knack for blending cultures. The Pantheon's Greek-style portico, the Forum's mix of Etruscan and Hellenistic influences, and the Colosseum's universal appeal to diverse crowds highlight how Rome absorbed ideas from conquered lands and made them its own. For the Romans, these buildings were more than stone and mortar. They were the empire's soul. The Colosseum roared with the energy of a united people. The Pantheon whispered of gods and eternity. The Forum buzzed with the debates and dreams of a civilization. Together, they told a story of power, faith, and ingenuity that defined Rome at its peak. Today, these structures draw millions, their weathered stones still speaking of a time when Rome was the world's heart. The Colosseum's arches, the Pantheon's dome, and the Forum's ruins remind us of a civilization that built not just for its own time but for all time, leaving a legacy that continues to shape how we think about architecture, community, and the human spirit. The Roman Empire, at its height from the 1st century BCE to the 2nd century CE, achieved architectural wonders that still amaze us today. In an era without modern machines, the Romans built massive structures like the Colosseum and aqueducts that have stood for nearly 2 millennia. Their building techniques were not just practical. They were revolutionary, showcasing a brilliance that defined a civilization ruling from Britain to the Middle East. By mastering materials like concrete, perfecting arches and vaults, and organizing vast workforces, the Romans created a legacy of engineering that made their cities the envy of the ancient world. The cornerstone of Roman building was concrete, a game-changer that allowed them to construct faster and stronger than ever before. Unlike the heavy stone blocks used by Greeks or Egyptians, Roman concrete was a mix of volcanic ash, lime, and rubble, poured into wooden molds to form any shape. This material was durable, affordable, and versatile, enabling the Romans to build towering walls, curved domes, and sprawling aqueducts. For example, the Pantheon's massive dome, still the largest unreinforced concrete dome today, owes its strength to this innovation. The Romans even varied the concrete mix, using lighter pumice at the dome's top to reduce weight, showing their deep understanding of engineering. Arches and vaults were another Roman triumph. By arranging stones or concrete in a curved arch, they could span wide spaces and support heavy loads without collapsing. This technique made structures like the Colosseum's multi-level galleries possible, creating open, airy spaces for thousands. Vaults, which extended arches into barrel or groin shapes, allowed for grand interiors in basilicas and baths. These designs distributed weight efficiently, making buildings both sturdy and spacious. Aqueducts, stretching miles across rugged terrain, relied on arches to maintain a steady water flow, proving the technique's practicality in an age of hand tools and human labor. The Romans' greatness also lay in their organization. Building projects required thousands of worker slaves, soldiers, and skilled craftsmen coordinated with precision. They sourced materials from across the empire, shipping marble from Greece and granite from Egypt. Cranes powered by human treadwheels lifted massive stones, while engineers used simple tools like plumb lines to ensure accuracy. This logistical mastery, in a time without electricity or engines, turned Rome's ambitious visions into reality, from the Forum's temples to the roads linking distant provinces. These techniques, concrete, arches, and meticulous planning, were the backbone of Rome's architectural splendor. They allowed the empire to build on a scale unmatched in the ancient world, creating cities that buzzed with life and inspired awe. The fact that many Roman structures still stand, despite earthquakes and time, speaks to their extraordinary skill. In an era of torches and chariots, the Romans engineered a world that feels almost modern, proving their genius and leaving a mark that continues to inspire. The Roman Empire, flourishing from the 1st century BCE to the 2nd century CE, was not just a realm of grand buildings and mighty armies. It was a civilization built on the strength of its laws. In an ancient world often ruled by whim or force, the Romans crafted a legal system that brought order, fairness, and unity to a vast empire stretching from Britain to the Middle East. Roman law, with its emphasis on justice, property rights, and civic duty, was a cornerstone of the empire's success, showcasing a brilliance that set Rome apart and left a legacy still felt in modern courtrooms. This system, developed over centuries, was a marvel of clarity and adaptability, proving that even in a time of swords and sandals, the Romans could govern with sophistication and vision. The foundation of Roman law began with the 12 Tables, established around 450 BCE. In a city where disputes were once settled by custom or elite privilege, these laws, carved into bronze and displayed in the Roman Forum, were a revolutionary step toward equality. They outlined rules for everything from property disputes to family matters, ensuring that every citizen, rich or poor, had rights under the law. The 12 Tables declared that no one was above justice, a radical idea in an era when kings and warlords often ruled unchecked. Though simple by later standards, these laws were a public promise of fairness, written in clear language so all Romans could understand their rights and duties. This transparency was a hallmark of Roman law, showing a commitment to a society where order prevailed over chaos. As the empire grew, so did the complexity of its legal system. By the 1st century BCE, Rome ruled millions across diverse cultures, from Gauls to Greeks. Roman law evolved to meet these challenges, balancing local traditions with imperial standards. Jurists, trained legal experts, emerged to interpret laws and advise courts, creating a body of legal thought that was both practical and principled. Concepts like contracts, inheritance, and civil rights took shape, allowing trade and personal affairs to flourish across the empire. For example, a merchant in Syria could sign a deal with a farmer in Spain, confident that Roman law would protect their agreement. This legal consistency was a glue that held the empire together, fostering trust and prosperity in a world without modern communication. The greatness of Roman law shone in its adaptability. Unlike rigid codes of other ancient societies, Roman law grew with the empire's needs. Under emperors like Augustus, new laws addressed issues like taxation and citizenship, while still respecting older traditions. By the 2nd century CE, the idea of natural law, universal principles of justice began to influence Roman thought, suggesting that some rights were inherent to all people. This was a profound leap, planting seeds for modern human rights. Later, in the 6th century CE, Emperor Justinian's Corpus Juris Civilis compiled centuries of Roman legal wisdom into a single code, preserving it for future generations. This work became the bedrock of legal systems in medieval Europe and beyond, shaping laws on everything from marriage to commerce. Roman law's brilliance lay in its ability to govern a sprawling, diverse empire with fairness and foresight. In an age without computers or printing presses, the Romans created a system that was clear, flexible, and enduring. It gave citizens a sense of security, knowing their property, contracts, and lives were protected by written rules. It allowed Rome to manage millions, from bustling cities to remote outposts, with a shared sense of justice. Most remarkably, Roman law outlived the empire itself, influencing modern legal systems in Europe and the Americas. In a time of chariots and togas, the Romans built a legal framework that still underpins our world, proving their genius and leaving a legacy as enduring as their stone arches. The Roman Empire, at its peak from the 1st century BCE to the 2nd century CE, was a colossal realm that stretched from the misty shores of Britain to the sands of the Middle East. Governing such a vast and diverse territory, home to millions of people with different languages, cultures, and traditions, was a monumental challenge. Yet, the Romans mastered this task with a system of administration that was as brilliant as it was effective, showcasing their genius in an ancient world without modern tools or technology. Their ability to maintain order, collect taxes, and unify far-flung provinces under one rule was a testament to their vision and organizational skill, making Rome a model of governance that still inspires awe today. At the heart of Rome's governance was a network of appointed officials, with governors leading the charge. Each province, from Gaul to Egypt, was overseen by a governor chosen by the emperor or senate. These men, often experienced generals or senators, were tasked with enforcing laws, maintaining peace, and collecting taxes. They worked with local leaders to respect regional customs while ensuring loyalty to Rome, a delicate balance that kept the empire cohesive. Governors held court to settle disputes, oversaw public works like roads and aqueducts, and commanded local troops to deter rebellions. This system allowed Rome to govern distant lands efficiently, even in an era when messages traveled by horse or ship. The emperor, as the ultimate authority, tied the empire together. Figures like Augustus centralized power, creating a bureaucracy that standardized administration across provinces. Tax systems were streamlined to fund the army and public projects, with records meticulously kept on papyrus or wax tablets. Cities were granted varying degrees of autonomy, with places like Athens retaining some self-rule as a nod to their history, while others were directly controlled. This flexibility prevented unrest and fostered a sense of inclusion, as conquered peoples could become Roman citizens over time, sharing in the empire's prosperity. What made Roman governance truly great was its scale and durability. In a time without phones or computers, the Romans managed an empire of 5 million square kilometers, uniting millions under a shared system. They built loyalty through benefits like citizenship, infrastructure, and protection, while their laws ensured fairness in trade and justice. Governors and local councils worked tirelessly to keep provinces productive, feeding Rome's wealth and stability. This system held firm for centuries, surviving invasions and internal strife, a feat unmatched in the ancient world. The brilliance of Rome's governance lies in its ability to adapt and endure. By blending central control with local freedom, the Romans created a model that kept a diverse empire united. Their roads carried officials to every corner. Their laws bound people to a common purpose, and their leaders turned chaos into order. In an age of torches and togas, Rome governed with a sophistication that feels almost modern, leaving a legacy that shaped how nations organize and rule today. Roman law's long-term impact on modern Europe is profound, especially in shaping laws for property and contracts. Rooted in principles like fairness and written agreements, Roman legal codes, such as the 12 Tables and Justinian's Corpus Juris Civilis, provided clear rules for ownership and trade. These ideas influenced medieval Europe's legal systems and laid the groundwork for modern civil law in countries like France and Italy. Concepts like legally binding contracts and property rights, born in ancient Rome, remain central to today's courts, proving the enduring genius of a civilization that shaped justice for centuries. The Roman Empire, at its zenith from the 1st century BCE to the 2nd century CE, was a civilization defined not only by its grand architecture and sophisticated laws, but also by its unmatched military might. In an ancient world where survival often depended on the strength of a sword, the Roman military was a force of unparalleled discipline, innovation, and ambition. It transformed a small city on the Tiber River into a colossus that ruled from the foggy hills of Britain to the deserts of the Middle East, covering 5 million square kilometers. The Roman army's ability to conquer, defend, and integrate vast territories was a testament to its brilliance, showcasing a level of organization and strategy that made Rome the greatest power of its time. This military machine, with its professional legions, ingenious tactics, and robust defenses, was the backbone of the empire's glory, proving that in an era of chariots and spears, Rome's soldiers were architects of a world-shaping legacy. The heart of Rome's military power was its legions, professional armies that set the standard for warfare in the ancient world. Each legion consisted of about 5,000 soldiers, primarily heavy infantry called legionaries, trained to fight with ruthless efficiency. These men were not mere conscripts. They were career soldiers, often serving 25 years, bound by strict discipline and a sense of loyalty to Rome. Legionaries were equipped with advanced gear for the time. A short sword called the gladius, ideal for close combat. A large rectangular shield known as the scutum, which protected them in tight formations, and a javelin or pilum, designed to pierce enemy shields and disrupt their lines. Their armor, including segmented plate, larica segmentata, offered mobility and protection, making them formidable on the battlefield. The legions were organized into smaller units called centuries, each led by a centurion, a battle-hardened officer who inspired courage and enforced order. This structure allowed legions to move and fight with precision, adapting to various terrains and enemies, from Celtic tribes in Gaul to Parthian horsemen in the east. The Romans' commitment to training was relentless. Soldiers marched 20 miles a day with heavy packs, practiced combat drills, and built camps nightly, complete with ditches and palisades. This discipline turned the legions into a cohesive force, capable of executing complex maneuvers like the testudo, a shield wall formation that deflected arrows and stones. In an age without radios or modern logistics, the legion's ability to operate as a unified machine was a marvel, reflecting Rome's genius for organization and its determination to dominate. The Roman military's greatness was not just in its soldiers but in its strategic vision, particularly in expanding the empire. Under emperors like Augustus, who reigned from 27 BCE to 14 CE, and Trajan, who ruled from 98 to 117 CE, Rome reached its territorial peak. Augustus reorganized the army into a standing force of about 28 legions, stationed across provinces to secure borders and launch campaigns. His conquests, including Egypt and parts of Germania, solidified Rome's control over the Mediterranean, which the Romans called Mare Nostrum, or Our Sea. Trajan pushed the empire's boundaries even further, annexing Dacia, modern Romania, and parts of Mesopotamia, bringing Rome's wealth and influence to new heights. These expansions were not random. They were carefully planned, combining military might with diplomacy. The Romans often negotiated with local leaders, offering trade or citizenship to secure loyalty, but they were equally ready to crush resistance. Battles like the conquest of Gaul under Julius Caesar, from 58 to 50 BCE, showed Rome's ability to wage long, grueling campaigns, defeating millions with a fraction of their numbers through superior tactics and engineering. The Romans built siege ramps, bridges, and fortifications on the fly, turning landscapes into tools of victory. For example, during the siege of Alesia, Caesar's forces constructed 25 miles of fortifications to trap the Gauls, showcasing engineering as a weapon. This blend of brute force and clever strategy allowed Rome to govern lands as diverse as Spain's vineyards and Syria's deserts, creating a unified empire in a fractured world. Defense was another pillar of Rome's military power, ensuring the empire's longevity in a hostile world. The Romans built a network of fortifications called the limes, a system of walls, forts, and watchtowers along the empire's borders. Hadrian's Wall, stretching 73 miles across northern Britain, was a prime example, built under Emperor Hadrian around 122 CE to deter Celtic raids. Made of stone and turf, it featured forts housing thousands of troops, with mile castles and turrets for constant surveillance. Similar defenses lined the Rhine and Danube rivers, protecting against Germanic tribes, or guarded the Sahara's edges against desert nomads. These fortifications were not just barriers. They were economic hubs, with markets and settlements springing up around them, integrating border regions into the empire. The Romans also maintained a navy, patrolling the Mediterranean to suppress pirates and secure trade routes. This defensive network allowed Rome to focus resources on internal growth while deterring external threats. In an era when invasions could topple kingdoms overnight, Rome's ability to hold its frontiers for centuries was a feat of planning and resilience, proving the military's role as the empire's shield. The Roman military's impact went beyond conquest and defense. It was a force for cultural integration. Soldiers, often recruited from provinces, spread Roman customs, language, and infrastructure wherever they went. Legionaries built roads, aqueducts, and cities, turning conquered lands into Roman ones. Veterans, granted land after service, settled in provinces, fostering loyalty and Roman identity. The army also offered a path to citizenship for non-Romans, a powerful incentive that bound diverse peoples to the empire. This cultural role made the military not just a tool of war but a builder of Rome's enduring unity. What made Rome's military truly great was its adaptability and scale. In a time without modern technology, the Romans fielded armies of over 150,000 men, supplied them across continents, and coordinated campaigns thousands of miles from Rome. They faced enemies as varied as British charioteers and Persian archers, yet consistently triumphed through training, innovation, and discipline. The military's engineering feats bridges built in days. Camps erected overnight rivaled their combat prowess. Their logistics, relying on ox carts and handwritten orders, supported a war machine that operated like clockwork. This was no small achievement in an age of parchment and torches, where a single misstep could doom an army. The Roman military's legacy is as enduring as the empire itself. Its tactics influenced warfare for centuries, from medieval knights to modern armies. The roads and forts it built still trace Europe's landscapes, and its role in spreading Latin and Roman law shaped Western civilization. In battles like Actium in 31 BCE, where Octavian's navy secured his rise to Augustus, or Trajan's Dacian wars, etched on his victory column, the military wrote Rome's story in blood and stone. The legions were more than soldiers. They were the empire's heartbeat, carrying its ambitions across the known world. In an ancient era of chaos and conquest, Rome's military stood as a beacon of order and power, proving that a city on 7 hills could rule an empire through the strength of its soldiers and the vision of its leaders. During its golden age from the 1st century BCE to the 2nd century CE, the Roman Empire was a cultural giant, ruling 5 million square kilometers from Britain to Egypt. More than its armies and grand buildings, Rome united diverse peoples with the Latin language and vibrant traditions. This remarkable blend of culture and ideas created a lasting legacy, shaping modern languages, literature, and values, and showing Rome's brilliance in a world of scattered tribes. Latin, the language of Rome, was the empire's greatest cultural export. Born in the hills of Latium, it grew from a local dialect into the unifying voice of an empire that spanned millions of people. Latin was the language of law, government, and trade, spoken in bustling markets in Gaul, inscribed on stone monuments in Syria, and taught to children in Spain. Its clarity and structure made it ideal for administration, allowing emperors and governors to issue decrees that were understood from the Atlantic to the Euphrates. Soldiers carried Latin to distant outposts, merchants used it to seal deals, and poets crafted verses that resonated across generations. The language's versatility was remarkable. It could convey the grandeur of a senator's speech or the simplicity of a farmer's contract. Latin spread was not forced but organic, as conquered peoples adopted it to gain access to Roman citizenship, trade, and prestige. This linguistic unity was a marvel in an era without printing presses or mass communication, knitting together a diverse empire where Greeks, Celts, and Berbers could share a common tongue. The Romans' foresight in promoting Latin created a cultural glue that held the empire together, proving their genius in governing through words as much as swords. The legacy of Latin extends far beyond the empire's fall in 476 CE. It gave birth to the Romance languages French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian spoken by hundreds of millions today. Even English, though Germanic, borrows heavily from Latin, with words like justice, citizen, and republic rooted in Rome's vocabulary. Latin remains alive in science, law, and religion, from medical terms like femur to legal phrases like habeas corpus. The Catholic Church preserved Latin through the Middle Ages, using it for liturgy and scholarship, ensuring Rome's linguistic influence endured. In an age when most languages faded with their speakers, Latin's transformation into modern tongues and its presence in academic fields highlight the Romans' extraordinary ability to create something timeless. This linguistic bridge, built in a time of parchment and quills, connected ancient Rome to the modern world, a testament to the empire's far-reaching vision. Roman culture was equally transformative, blending the empire's own innovations with the best of its conquered lands. Rome was a cultural melting pot, absorbing Greek philosophy, Egyptian mysticism, and Celtic craftsmanship, then refining them into something distinctly Roman. Literature was a crown jewel of this culture, with poets like Virgil, whose epic Aeneid celebrated Rome's mythical origins, crafting works that inspired writers for centuries. Ovid's Metamorphoses, a collection of myths, captured the human experience with wit and beauty, influencing Renaissance artists and modern storytellers. These works were not just entertainment. They were tools of cultural unity, read aloud in forums and studied by elites across the empire. Roman literature gave the empire a shared narrative, reinforcing its values of duty, honor, and destiny. In an era without mass media, the ability to spread such stories across millions of people was a feat of cultural engineering, showing Rome's knack for shaping hearts and minds. Art and architecture also carried Rome's cultural influence. Sculptures, like the intricate reliefs on the Arch of Titus, depicted victories and gods with lifelike detail, blending Greek realism with Roman grandeur. Mosaics adorned villas and public baths, their colorful patterns telling stories of mythology and daily life. Roman festivals, such as Saturnalia, where masters and slaves swapped roles for a day, fostered a sense of community and shared joy. These cultural expressions were not confined to Rome but spread to every province, from the theaters of Ephesus to the villas of Britain. The Romans built amphitheaters, baths, and temples wherever they went, creating spaces where diverse peoples could experience Roman culture. This cultural export was deliberate. By sharing their art, festivals, and architecture, the Romans made conquered lands feel like extensions of Rome itself, fostering loyalty and unity. In a time when travel took weeks and communication relied on handwritten scrolls, Rome's ability to create a shared cultural identity across such distances was nothing short of extraordinary. Religion played a key role in Rome's cultural influence, blending local beliefs with imperial worship. The Romans were inclusive, allowing conquered peoples to keep their gods while introducing Roman deities like Jupiter and Venus. Emperors, starting with Augustus, were often deified, their statues worshipped in temples across the empire, reinforcing central authority. This imperial cult, alongside traditional rituals, gave Romans and provincials a shared spiritual framework. The spread of Roman religion, later including early Christianity, shaped Europe's spiritual landscape, with Christian Rome eventually becoming the seat of the papacy. This religious adaptability, in an age of competing faiths, showed Rome's skill in uniting diverse peoples under a common cultural umbrella. The greatness of Rome's cultural influence lies in its scope and endurance. In an ancient world where empires rose and fell, Rome created a language and culture that outlived its political power. Latin unified millions, giving them a shared voice, while Roman literature, art, and festivals created a sense of belonging that transcended borders. The empire's cultural achievements were not accidental but the result of deliberate policies building schools, spreading citizenship, and erecting monuments that made Roman identity accessible to all. This was a civilization that understood the power of ideas, using words and images to govern as effectively as armies. The fact that we still read Virgil, speak Latin-derived languages, and marvel at Roman art proves the empire's cultural genius. In a time of torches and togas, Rome built a cultural legacy that feels eternal, shaping the Western world's language, literature, and values for over 2 millennia. The Roman Empire was not just a moment in history. It was a cultural revolution that continues to resonate, reminding us of the power of a civilization that spoke, wrote, and created for the ages. The Roman Empire, thriving from the 1st century BCE to the 2nd century CE, was a colossal civilization that ruled over 5 million square kilometers, from Britain's windswept cliffs to Egypt's sun-baked sands. Its grandeur marked by towering monuments, intricate legal systems, disciplined armies, and a unifying culture made it the heart of the ancient world. Yet, beneath this legacy of achievement lies a veil of mystery that continues to captivate historians, archaeologists, and curious minds. In an era without modern technology, how did the Romans accomplish feats that seem almost impossible? What secrets did they take to their graves? From lost technologies and puzzling artifacts to unexplained social practices and cryptic religious rituals, the Roman Empire holds enigmas that defy full explanation, reminding us of its brilliance and the gaps in our understanding that keep its story alive. One of the greatest mysteries is the Romans' advanced engineering knowledge, particularly in areas beyond their famous concrete and arches. For instance, the Antikythera mechanism, a device found in a Mediterranean shipwreck dated to the 1st century BCE, has sparked intense debate. This complex bronze gadget with interlocking gears is considered the world's first analog computer, used to predict astronomical events like eclipses. While not definitively Roman, it was found in a region under Rome's influence, raising questions about whether the Romans possessed or encountered such sophisticated technology. How did they, or their Hellenistic neighbors, develop this level of precision in an age of hand-forged tools? Was the Antikythera mechanism a one-off, or did the Romans use similar devices for navigation, astronomy, or even military planning? No texts or artifacts confirm widespread use, leaving scholars to wonder if this technology was a closely guarded secret, lost when the empire declined, or simply an anomaly. The absence of other such devices in Roman records only deepens the puzzle, suggesting a level of scientific knowledge that may have rivaled early modern inventions, yet vanished without a trace. Another enigma lies in the Romans' ability to manage water on an unprecedented scale, particularly in their bath complexes and mysterious hydraulic systems. The baths of Caracalla, built in the early 3rd century CE but rooted in earlier designs, could accommodate thousands daily, with heated floors, cold pools, and steam rooms. The precision of their hypocaust system underfloor heating using hot air circulated through clay pipes required an understanding of thermodynamics that seems astonishing for the time. How did the Romans, without thermometers or advanced mathematics, calculate the exact temperatures needed to keep these baths comfortable? Even more perplexing are reports of self-filling fountains in Roman villas, described in ancient texts but never fully explained. Some speculate these used siphons or early pressure systems, but no intact examples survive. The lack of detailed records about their hydraulic engineering beyond aqueducts suggests either a lost body of knowledge or techniques so commonplace they weren't written down. In an era of quills and scrolls, the Romans' mastery of water flow hints at a technological sophistication we still struggle to reconstruct, making their baths and fountains enduring symbols of their enigmatic ingenuity. The social structure of Roman society also hides mysteries, particularly around the lives of ordinary people. While we know much about emperors, senators, and gladiators, the daily lives of the lower classes slaves, freedmen, and rural peasants remain shrouded in uncertainty. For example, the plebs urbana, Rome's urban working class, numbered in the hundreds of thousands, yet their personal stories are scarce. Archaeological finds, like graffiti in Pompeii, reveal glimpses of their humor, love, and struggles. But how did they organize their communities? Did they have informal leaders or secret societies that influenced city politics? Some inscriptions hint at mutual aid groups among slaves and freedmen, but no clear evidence explains their scope or impact. The silence in elite written texts about these groups suggests either deliberate omission or ignorance, leaving a gap in our understanding of how Rome's diverse society functioned. In a city of over 1 million, where riots over bread or chariot races could erupt, the mechanisms that kept the lower classes in check or empowered them remain a puzzle, highlighting the complexity of a civilization that balanced unity with inequality. Religion in the Roman Empire presents another layer of mystery, especially the secretive cults and rituals that flourished alongside public worship. The Mithraic cult, popular among soldiers in the 1st to 3rd centuries CE, is a prime example. Devotees of Mithras, a Persian-inspired god, met in underground temples called Mithraea, where they performed rituals involving bull sacrifices and complex initiation rites. Despite hundreds of Mithraea found across the empire, from London to Syria, no written records explain the cult's core beliefs or practices. The secrecy was intentional. Initiates swore oaths of silence, but this leaves modern scholars with only statues, reliefs, and cryptic symbols to interpret. Was Mithraism a rival to early Christianity, as some suggest, or a complementary spiritual path? Why did it appeal so strongly to soldiers, and what role did it play in military loyalty? The cult's sudden decline in the 4th century CE, as Christianity rose, adds to the mystery, suggesting a shift in belief we can't fully trace. In an empire that embraced diverse gods, the hidden nature of Mithraism underscores a spiritual depth that remains just out of reach. The Romans' approach to medicine also raises unanswered questions. Ancient texts by physicians like Galen describe treatment surgical tools, herbal remedies, and even brain surgeries that rival modern practices in precision. Archaeological finds, such as scalpels and forceps from Pompeii, confirm their skill, but how did they achieve such results without microscopes or antiseptics? For example, Roman surgeons performed cataract surgeries using needles to remove clouded lenses, a procedure requiring steady hands and deep anatomical knowledge. Yet, no texts explain how they learned these techniques or avoided infections in an era before germ theory. Some speculate they used wine or honey as natural antiseptics, but the high success rates reported in texts seem almost miraculous. Did the Romans have a systematic medical training system, perhaps lost in the chaos of the empire's fall? The gap between their tools and their outcomes suggests a level of expertise that defies our understanding, making their medical practices a tantalizing mystery. Archaeological anomalies add further intrigue. The so-called Roman dodecahedra, small bronze objects with 12 pentagonal faces, have been found across Europe, from Wales to Hungary. Ranging from fist-sized to smaller, these artifacts, dated to the 2nd to 4th centuries CE, have no clear purpose. Theories range from surveying tools to religious objects or even knitting aids, but no Roman text mentions them, and their intricate design suggests a specialized function. Why were they made with such care, only to vanish from the record? Similarly, the London stone, a limestone block in Roman Londinium, was revered for centuries, but its original significance, perhaps a marker, altar, or ritual object, remains unknown. These artifacts, unmentioned in surviving texts, hint at aspects of Roman life or belief we've yet to uncover, fueling speculation about their role in a civilization that documented so much. The decline of the Western Roman Empire in 476 CE is itself a mystery, not in its occurrence but in its specifics. While historians cite invasions, economic collapse, and internal strife, the exact tipping point remains elusive. Why did the empire, so resilient for centuries, fail to recover from pressures it had weathered before? Some point to environmental factors like climate shifts or lead poisoning from water pipes, but evidence is inconclusive. Others suggest cultural or psychological exhaustion, as Romans lost faith in their institutions. The lack of a single, clear cause keeps the empire's fall a topic of debate, reminding us how even a giant can crumble under unseen forces. These mysteries: lost technologies, hidden social networks, secretive cults, advanced medicine, cryptic artifacts, and the empire's collapse reveal the Roman Empire's complexity. In an age of hand tools and scrolls, Rome achieved what seems impossible, leaving gaps in our knowledge that spark wonder. The Antikythera mechanism, Mithraic rituals, and dodecahedra are like pieces of a puzzle we can't complete, while the lives of ordinary Romans and the causes of their fall remain shadows in history. Yet, these unknowns only enhance Rome's greatness, showing a civilization so advanced that parts of its story elude us. The Roman Empire was not just a chapter in history. It was a riddle, etched in stone and whispered in secrets, that continues to challenge and inspire us to uncover its truths. The Roman Empire's mysteries, from lost technologies to secret cults, reveal a civilization of unmatched brilliance. Its engineering, medicine, and social complexity, achieved in an ancient world, continue to puzzle and inspire. Though some secrets remain locked in time, each discovery deepens our awe for Rome's genius. The empire's legacy, etched in stone and ideas, reminds us that even in an age of torches, Rome built a world that still shapes ours, forever a beacon of human potential. If unexplained stories give you chills, don't forget to follow Ancient Relics Keeper, where time and mystery intertwine, and every ending is just the beginning of another unanswered question.